All right, today we'll start with leather footwears. Leather footwears. In 2018, Africa imported as much as it exported leather footwear. This is among few products that the amount spent in importing is equal to almost similar to amount spent in exporting. You know, in some cases, whereas amount of import might be over $1 billion, but what we export might be less than $100,000 or $1 million or $200 million. So, but in this case, we're having $607 million in import and $678 million in export. $678 million in export. Footwear are shoes, but leather shoes, not rubber shoes, leather shoes. So if I'm thinking of a market in Africa that I would like to ship such product to, I should be looking at South Africa. Nigeria is not doing badly. Nigeria, Morocco, Egypt, Angola, Algeria, Kenya, Libya, Mauritius. These are those who currently import this item. And I know for a fact that Nigeria can do this. I mean, we're doing a lot of this in the clusters of wares, both clothing and shoes in Aba. So Nigeria will have what it takes to take advantage of the leather footwear market under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. On the export side, we already have two giants taking up over almost 80%, almost 90% of the market. Can you imagine? North African countries, Tunisia and Morocco. And by the time we check, you will realize that those that have more bovine, those that sell more cattle, are not Tunisia and Morocco. Those that sell more cattle might not be Tunisia and Morocco. We might be able to get there today. But they are the ones that produce a lot of leather footwear. So probably, most likely import most of the raw materials, being the leathers. But they are the one that is producing leather footwear. They are the one producing leather footwear and exporting the leather footwear in Africa. And the trend line also shows an increase. Like I said, I've said that repeatedly in the past. Things that human beings need and use regularly, especially those they require for survival, will keep growing in Africa. Why? Because of the humongous amount of population, and the fact that that population is still growing is also a major issue. Then we have cheese. Cheese. I'm sure some people will be wondering, which one is cheese again? Why is cheese a major one like this? You know, the reason why I like data a lot is because of there's so many things going on that you probably do not even have an idea of what it is until you begin to check data to see what people are doing. Cheese is a milk-based food that is produced in wide-ranging flavor, texture, and form. Hundreds of types of cheese are produced from different countries around the world. And Nigeria is not left out in the production of cheese. But what is amazing to me is that Africa is importing $635 million worth of cheese and only exporting 364. So we are actually importing twice as much as we are exporting, telling me huge opportunity. Huge, huge, huge opportunity. In Africa, for those producing cheese. Is that not interesting? There are some products that we look at footwear that we just talk about. Look at footwear. No, just take a look at footwear we just talk about. There are some products you probably never thought of before, and now you are realizing that this particular product is a cash cow. Is a cash cow. Even though you probably are not even aware of it before. And sincerely, that is the essence of this program, the essence of this weekly program in which we talk to ourselves about all the opportunity available within this space in Nigeria, is to increase the level of awareness. Is to increase the level of awareness of what is possible in Africa, which people are already doing anyway. What is possible in Africa, which people are already doing? Cheese. Can you imagine? But you know, like I said, as long as it is food, be rest assured that there are huge markets for it. Why? Our population keep growing. The population grow more and rapidly where there is less development. Where there is more unemployment, where there is no infrastructure, no power, no light, and people have to sleep on time. Someone said, the more women are kept in the boardroom, the lesser the population. He said, but the more women goes to the bedroom, the higher the population. Women would be more in the boardroom if there are jobs. And that's, for me, do you know what has happened? The Asians and Europeans, particularly Asians, Chinese leading the way, have mastered this, and they are taking advantage of this seriously. So they set up businesses that is basically into food, cheap to buy in Africa. And my heart cry is to see a situation in which these people are not the ones that will take advantage of the AFCFTA. Because what I see them do to come and set up those factories here. So instead of selling to us, which might not be as profitable again because of the increase in duty, because of the fact that there are more competition now from within, then we see a situation where a number of them might be sourcing their product. A number of Africa might be sourcing their product from within Africa, and those that ship this product into Africa, we have to either come and set up in Africa or lose that market. So what are the major importers of cheese? Just in case you want to export cheese. Egypt. You will notice something. Egypt is an exporter, at the same time an importer. Like I said, you see this playing out in many countries. In which same country is importing what is exporting. The difference more often than not is the brand or type or variant, because there are so many types of cheese. Even though Egyptians are the largest exporter of cheese in Africa, but they also still import. So don't be surprised to see that. I've seen that a lot, particularly for South Africa. Can you imagine? South Africa is here also. South Africa. Even Morocco is having the same issue. So three major exporters. Egyptians, 75%. The Moroccans 17.5%, and the South Africans 4.9, 4.7 or 4.69%. But do you notice something about these people? That the same country importing, also exporting. Besides them, you also have Algeria as a market to consider, Libya, another market to consider, Mauritius, another market to consider. And do you notice what I said again? This theory for many products has worked. The theory of the higher the growth in population, the higher the demand for increase. The higher the increase, or the more the import of items being done in Africa, particularly when it has to do with food required for human survival. Particularly when it has to do with food required for human survival. So who are the competitors you have to contend with if you want to export cheese? The Egyptian, who own the 75%, Morocco, 17%, South Africa, 4.6%, Tunisia, 2.2%, and Mauritius, 1.1%. Another product is bovine. Bovine. If you are thinking what bovine is, that's another name for cow or cattle. That's another name for cow. Now, this is not frozen bovine meat. This is the cattle itself. You know, as in export of the cattle. You know, we've done frozen bovine before. Frozen bovine meat before. Now we're not looking at the bovine meat, we are looking at the cattle itself. The cattle itself. Cattle are being exported in Africa. Cattle are being exported in Africa. Cattle are being imported in Africa. So Africa import cattle. Always remember, when we talk about import, always remember, the import in this case is not necessarily only from outside of Africa. This data involve imports of Africa, either intra-African import or extra-African import. Either intra-African import or extra-African import. What is important is that this is the aggregate of items being imported by Africans, either from other African countries or from outside of Africa, from Europe, from Asia, and probably from America. Who are the major importers? Now, do you notice something? I don't know if you notice something here. Egyptians are the largest exporter of cheese, and Egyptians are the largest importer of bovine. Do you notice a connection? Do you notice a connection? Egyptians are the largest importer. Do you notice a connection? The largest importer of cattle is the largest exporter of cheese. You know, cheese is made from milk, and the milk are from cattle. Cheese is made from milk, and the milk are from cattle. So who are the major importer of bovine? Egyptians, Algerians, Libya, Morocco, major importer, who are importing about 90%. About 90% of the import of the item. About 90% of the import of this item. About 90%. How about the exporters? How about the exporters? Sudan. If you are familiar with, there is even a particular country that I think the name has Sudan in it. If I remember my Greek very well in secondary school. Then we have Somalia. Sudan and Somalia constitute over about 80% of exporters of cattle. And South Africa is not also joking. South Africa is also very serious on this cattle matter. South Africa is serious on this cattle matter. The cattle matter is South Africa is interested in the cattle matter. And that's why you are seeing this volume of import from South Africa. Sorry, volume of export rather from South Africa. The volume of export from South Africa. Another interesting one, in my opinion, for me, I think this is very, very interesting. And I think it's interesting because who would have thought that there is so much opportunity within this place? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? There is so much opportunity of this magnitude just to think of cattle. Just to think of cattle. It's amazing. But you know what? That is the reality that we face. The fact that cattle is a major, major foreign exchange earner for some countries. And I don't think Nigeria should be left out in this. I think, recently we had issue with Ruga. Sometimes you have problem, but your problem is a good problem. We had Ruga, we had cattle colony, we have ranch. So much issues. Of course, because there are so many suspicions among ourselves about the agenda or plan of some people. And I'm asking myself, rather than saying they should not come, which is okay, if you don't want them to come, why don't you do it yourself? Why don't you build those ranches yourself? Why don't you take advantage of it yourself? I have maintained, and I keep maintaining, that no Nigerian state, and I will probably have to repeat that seminar again sometimes in the new year. No Nigerian state is not viable or unviable. What has happened is the people that come in don't have the intention of generating income. They actually only have the intention of coming to take whatever it is coming. And how do you actually run a country or run a state or run a public enterprise when you are not thinking of earning income, but waiting for someone to give you income? Do you know what that means? That means as a governor, if I fold my arm and refuse to do anything in a whole month, wake up, sleep, eat, watch movie, wake up, sleep, eat, watch movie, money will come at the end of the month. How do you expect such a state to grow? There is no motivation. There is no incentive. And how do you expect that someone that is thinking of finding solution is the one that will win? Because a lot of people want to go and earn and what's the name? Grab as much as they can. Why? Because you don't need to be able to do anything. You just need to become the governor and you automatically become rich with your security vote and other emoluments, both legal and illegal, you have access to. So that is the problem. And I'm saying if we are doing this volume with Bovine, that's a lot of money. Huge opportunity for Bovine. And the trend line also show again, my theory is still being proven right. The trend line also show again that the trend is growing. It's growing. Remember your competitors, as far as export of this product is concerned: South Africa, Sudan, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Mozambique. Sauce and seasoning. This look more like it for me. This one, a lot of SMEs should be interested in this one. A lot of SMEs. From those that package pepper to ginger to garlic to cinnamon to different kind of spices. I mean, so many of them. So many of them. So many spices. Look at the amount used to import spices in Africa. Do you know Nigeria is 20? Interesting. Nigeria is contributing a whopping 20% in import of spices. Do you know that Nigerian farmers are peasant? 75%. We have not used up to half of our arable land. And a lot of our produce perish as poverty losses, close to 40–50%. And, you know, it's sad, really. I'm sad to see this data that we're doing 20%. It's sad, sincerely sad. That Nigeria is the largest. So South Africa and Egypt will be looking at Nigeria, you know. South Africa and Egypt will be looking at Nigeria, Tunisia, Kenya, Senegal. Everybody will be looking at Nigeria. That Nigeria is a major. Nobody is closer to Nigeria. No near. We take a lot of spices in this country. Nobody is near Nigeria. Nobody is near Nigeria. As far as spices are concerned, no one is near Nigeria. And Nigeria, therefore, has become rather a market of interest as far as the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is concerned. Who are the other importers? South Africa, Benin, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Guinea, Morocco, Angola. You notice that this seasoning, a lot of African countries, unlike the others, a lot of African countries have a great share. Only that Nigeria is taking 20%, and no one is near close. No one is even 7%. No one is 6%. No one is there to be near Nigeria as far as this is concerned. Amazing stuff, right? A huge opportunity for people that want to ship into Nigeria. But I'm of the opinion that Nigeria can actually do a lot of this also in terms of export. From curry to thyme to pepper to ginger to cinnamon, all sorts of spices are available out there. That anyone interested can have access to. My theory is still right. It's still proven correctly. The trend line of the demand for spices is on the increase. The trend line for the demand. Now, what I see something in the chart below that a good chunk of African countries are placing serious duties on these spices or sauces and seasonings. The implication of this is we should be able to have some respite in terms of reduction in the cost of importing these items under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, depending on different countries anyway, So the competitors are South Africa, Egyptians, Tunisia, Kenya, and Senegal. Flavored water. You see this a lot outside Nigeria, Europe, America, even in Asia. But Africans also are not doing badly in importing it. So now, this should let you know something. You know, an average person thinking of export in Nigeria, do you know what they think of? Cocoa, cashew, ginger, hibiscus, and those are the things that have kept us small for years. It has kept us small for years. You will notice something, that there are some regular products, run-of-the-mill products, that we probably are not even looking at all, but with huge, huge, huge opportunity for sales. Water. Can you imagine? Flavored water. Water. Flavored water. The import of flavored water is like ×3 of our export. Nigeria is also a major importer. You know, you see this flavored water in supermarket. You see it majorly in supermarket. Importer of flavored water, South Africa, 12.8%. Libya, 10.5%. Ghana, about 10%. Nigeria, 6.27%. 6.27%. Nigeria. Zimbabwe, 4.65%. Zimbabwe, 4.65%. Who are those exporting it? Zambian. So the export market, South Africa, Libya, Nigeria, Ghana. But who are the exporters? Zambia. So I'm wondering why Zambia is doing so much of water export, flavor water, by the way. Can you see that Nigeria also exports flavor water? Like I said, it's all about preference. Preference. Number one, sometimes some might not even know that people produce in Nigeria, but some might prefer some other brand, and that probably explains the reason why they import those items, even though it's produced in their country. So Zambia, 24%, South Africa, 19.6%, Egypt, 16.4%, Nigeria, 6.4%, Morocco, 4.8%, Ghana, about 4%, Uganda, 3.7%, and these are the major importer. Trend line, growing, consistently growing. Growing, consistently growing. The trend line shows a consistent and continuous increase in the rate of consumption of this product. So if I'm going to go into this business, I should be ready to compete with Zambia, compete with South Africa, compete with Egypt. And when you're thinking of competition, you need to ask very important and critical questions so you can be sure you are prepared actually to take on the competition. To take on the competition. Another product, processed fish. You know, this particular product also connects a lot with our people. This is where people that do smoked fish live. smoked fish people. And you know, in Nigeria today, what has happened in Nigeria today is that a lot of people are into aquaculture. So the processing of fish is increasing. In fact, there's so many of that in Lagos and its environ, and a lot in Ogun State in particular. In Ogun State, Ijebu, Ogun State in particular. So we have a huge potential. But look at the figure. Just see the figure. 1.11 billion. I'm also excited to see that Africa is doing a lot of processed fish export. Championed by Morocco. Championed by Morocco. But who are the importers? Egypt, Libya, South Africa, Ghana being the major importer. Egypt 17.2%, Libya 15.2%, South Africa 12.3%, Ghana 7.56%, major importer. How about exporters? Major exporters. Morocco, Mauritius, Seychelles, Ghana. Morocco, major exporter of fish. Morocco. Seychelles, Mauritius, and I'm not surprised about Ghana also. I'm not surprised about Ghana. Ghana is doing a lot in terms of fish. Now, with the growth of aquaculture in Nigeria, I think we need to do a lot of promotion of SMEs for export, sincerely. And the only way Nigeria will win in AFCFTA is if SME are, because sometimes we just concentrate on the large corporate and forget that Nigeria have, according to MBS last report, over 40 million SMEs. Think for a moment. If each of those businesses can hire just one more person, 40 million Nigeria will be off the street, being able to take care of their needs. 40 million will likely be lifted out of poverty, because today in Nigeria, over 80 million are living in extreme poverty, less than $1 a day. Extreme poverty. So I'm thinking, and I must say this is what some countries are doing. South Africa is doing a lot in this regard. And I think Ghana is doing a lot in this regard also. There are a couple of countries doing a lot in this regard. And what are they doing? They are doing a lot to get ready for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And how are they getting ready? SMEs. They are engaging their SMEs. They are empowering their SMEs. They are supporting their SMEs. Because they know the engine room for growth of any economy is SMEs. In fact, in some countries, 90% of the jobs are provided by SMEs. In some countries, 90% of the jobs are provided by SMEs. 90% of the jobs are provided by SME alone. So if we are not very strategic as far as AFCFTA is concerned, we might just find a situation where it's going to go, and I pray this does not happen, which is why we're contributing our own quota to put information out there. this does not happen. I pray it doesn't go the way the ETLS had gone. That it doesn't go the way the ETLS had gone. ETLS is ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. The ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS, was to promote trade in West Africa. By the way, that scheme is 30 years old. That scheme is 30 years old. Guess how many Nigerian companies are registered? How many Nigerian companies are registered? Less than 1,000. How many products? Less than 2,000 products. In 30 years. Someone is asking a question. Does it mean that we don't export processed fish in Nigeria? How do I key into this area? How can I export processed fish? We don't export it enough. So if we are not on the radar, we export. I know a few people that are probably in that space. We are not doing enough. You know, look at the total value now. We are looking at billions of dollars here. We are looking at billions. People that are exporting, there's no support, just small export here and there, maybe a few thousands of dollars. But here we are looking at billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Someone said the major fish we farm in Nigeria is catfish. Do the importing country eat a lot of catfish? Sardines are produced by Morocco, is widely eaten. Anna, thank you very much. I think you have given us some insight there. You know, what we try to do on this platform is to provoke further research. And I'm happy with what Anna just provided. What you need to do, if you're interested in any product, you need to then go and ask questions. If Morocco is exporting a lot of fish, what type of fish is it? What kind of fish is it? Is it a type of fish also we can produce in Nigeria? Why is everybody doing catfish, for crying out loud? Why? But there are other fishes that Nigeria even import. So why is it that we're doing catfish? Is there a reason for that? Or because everybody's used to it? I don't know. But the essence of this conversation is to always provoke a debate, to provoke a kind of discussion that will help everybody that is interested to go back and do some further research to validate what we've said, and also to take it further in looking for, okay, how do I, number one, what do Morocco? Someone have said now Morocco do a lot of sardine. So why can't we grow sardine and do something similar? If that's what's making Morocco to be taking 42% of this $1.75 billion market in Africa. That's the conversation we should be having. Those are further research we need to do to be able to ensure that we take advantage of the AFCFTA. To be able to know that we take advantage of the AFCFTA. So Moroccans, Seychelles, Kenyans, and Mauritius. And as usual, my theory is still correct. So far, so good. Trend line show continuous growth and increase in the demand for this item. In the demand for this item. And remember your competitors, the Moroccans, Mauritius, Seychelles, Ghanaian, and the Ivorians, and the Ivorians, and the Ivorians. This is a huge market, 1.75 billion. I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot. Then there is non-fillet frozen fish. Non-fillet frozen fish. Non-fillet frozen fish. Non-fillet frozen fish. You know, I know Nigeria do a lot of import of frozen fish. A lot. A lot. Frozen fish. These are fish that are still complete and frozen. The head is still there. You know, when you do filleting, you remove the hair, you remove the bone, and just the meat inside is being it is. But what is interesting about the importance of fish in Africa is that Nigeria is the leader. Nigeria is the leader. Doing about 19% out of 3.4 billion. I remember vividly as a banker. I left banking about 10 years ago. As a banker, I remember very, very well that when I was in trade in the defunct Diamond Bank, now Access Bank, when I'm processing trade transactions then, no fish import value is less than $1 million. None. None. And there's some very popular importer in Nigeria, majority who are foreigners. None of if they are opening a firm or doing an LC for an import of fish, is at least $1 million. At least $1 million. This is as far back as 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, $1 million. So I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all that we are having Nigeria's taking up this huge amount, or more than $500 million, being used to import fish that is produced locally. Frozen fish. Frozen fish. So if you want to export frozen fish, who are the competitors? Mauritius again. Sorry, Mauritania again, rather. Mauritania, South Africa, Morocco. Morocco here again. Morocco here again. Seychelles again. Seychelles again. And Senegal. And Senegal. And Senegal. So these are the major contenders, or rather competitors that you must learn to deal with if you're going to play in that space. If you're going to play in that space. Now, can we look at chocolate? Can we look at chocolate? Can we look at chocolate? You know, chocolate, by the way, is a major item that African is supposed to be exporting. You know, sometimes we need to ask ourselves this question: why is it that what we are supposed to be exporting, we don't export it? Why is it? Why is it that which we're supposed to be exporting, we don't export it? So, you know why for chocolate is so important for us? Do you know that Africa produce, not even Africa, West Africa produce 75%, 75%, a whopping 75% of cocoa in the world. So 75% of cocoa production in the world is from West Africa. Not just Africa, West Africa. The total market size for cocoa is $10 billion. So Africa is controlling 75% of it, about 7.5 billion. But that's not a good news. That's not a good news. That's not a good news. The value chain of cocoa in the world is over $100 billion. The value chain of cocoa is over $100 billion. And the chocolate market alone is $30 billion. So, question, who is making money? Who is making money? Who is making money? The African producing the cocoa beans or Netherlands? Who is the major buyer of cocoa beans? Netherlands. Who is a major buyer as far as cocoa beans is concerned? As far as cocoa beans is concerned. And a major exporter of cocoa cake, cocoa butter, cocoa liquor, and different varieties of cocoa. Look at this depressing news. Look at this depressing news. In another by 2050, if the rate of climate change continues to increase at this alarming rate, the temperature of the world at that time will not make cocoa production to do well in West Africa. Will not make cocoa production to do well in West Africa. So about 2 years ago, I saw a report. And this report says that Mars, I'm sure you know Mars. Mars is a major chocolate producer in the world. Mars is funding a research in America, I think California or thereabout, in a university in America, to come up with a new variety of cocoa beans that will be able to stand the temperature that is likely going to be in the world, the level of temperature, because of the level of CO2 in the atmosphere, that will be in the world by 2050, because their projection is that at this rate, cocoa production might go into extinction by 2050. That's just 30 years away. That's just 30 years away. That's just 30 years away. So they are funding this research in America. So the question you should ask ourselves is this: who are those that their livelihood depend on cocoa? Primarily, Africans, West Africans. Who are those that should be more concerned about the extinction of cocoa, if I thought they are even looking at that? West Africans. Who are those that are doing the research for the sustainability of cocoa in the world? Americans. Let me tell you what will happen. They are going to export that cocoa beans to us eventually. We are going to be buying it, and they will dictate who you can sell to. And they will dictate who you can sell to. If we don't do our own research to develop a varieties that will withstand that temperature in future. Back to chocolate. In Africa, almost $600 million is used to import chocolate. But I'm happy and delighted that out of about 413 million of chocolate or export is done by Africans. Cote d'Ivoire, I'm impressed, very much impressed with Cote d'Ivoire. Because Cote d'Ivoire is the largest exporter of cocoa beans in Africa and also the largest producer of chocolate. That's commendable. I must also commend Egyptians, who are not producer or major producer of cocoa beans, but a major exporter of chocolate. But a major exporter of chocolate. Good evening, Dele. I want to discuss previous precious stone with you after the meeting. Okay, you can chat me, Lucky. How do we take advantage of the digital trade in Africa? Please, sir, talk on logistics in Africa concerning FCFTA. All right. Okay. Maybe when I'm rounding this session, or when I'm discussing, this series we end in another maybe 8 sessions, or 5 to in another 5 to 8 sessions. I should end this particular series. I'm going to start another series in which I'll be analyzing the market in Africa one by one. So maybe when we begin to discuss that, I'll be able to answer this Aisha's question. But for logistics, right away, I can say logistics in Africa is a challenge, no doubt. There is this, what is called PIDA initiative. PIDA is actually project. I don't know if it's project. I think it's project on development of infrastructure development in Africa. I think project for infrastructure development in Africa, PIDA. Now, the PIDA project is not moving as fast as is expected because there is no incentive. So my opinion and theory is that if AFCFTA take off, infrastructure will naturally follow. Why? There will be need to move goods more within Africa. There are about 15 or 16 landlocked countries in Africa. So there will be need to move goods across Africa. And building of rail and building more road to toll it, to collect fees, to recover the money will become a good incentive. So investors can easily come in to build more rail, because now we want to move a lot of goods by rail, and to build more road. But I must also tell you that Nigeria, Nexim Bank, together with the private sector, have what is called Sea-Link project. The Sea-Link project is designed to enable movement of goods within the African continent. So in fact, Sea-Link is designed in a way that they are going to drag the lower Niger, so that right in Lokoja, those from the north can bring their goods. They don't bring it to Lagos. From Lokoja, they can join the ship to African countries. So the Sea-Link project is supposed to connect different countries in Africa. It's a private sector-driven initiative, but co-funded by Nexim Bank, to be able to drive the movement of goods by sea in Africa. Because today, a number of shipping lines have to go to Europe before coming back to Ghana, if I'm shipping to Ghana from Nigeria, even though some people are doing within the region now, but it's very expensive. So what am I saying in essence? There is a solution in that direction as far as logistics is concerned. And necessity is the mother of invention. If trade increase in Africa, building more road and rail through private sector funds will be easier, because they can easily recoup because of truck moving and goods moving more frequently on the African continent. I don't know if I've answered that question from Aisha. There's another question. He says, is there any e-commerce platform for B2B in Africa? Yes, but it's not very, very active. Maybe now. Now, this is where our technology people need to come on board. There is, but it's not very active. We need a very robust B2B platform in Africa. So if Oyewale, if you're an IT person, that's a project you want to take up. Building a B2B platform where people can be registered and verified, and people can place order and buy, or place order for, if I'm selling, for people to see and then post what I'm selling, my selling lead, and people can post their buying lead. It's going to be a great platform. They are around now, but it's not active enough. I think such a platform should be developed, and you must use the same technology to target market different African countries to be able to use that platform to trade. And if it's viable, people are going to register as paid member, and then you can get annual subscription from a lot of subscribers. Fumoyewale, maybe that's one thing you want to consider. All right, let's close today. 6 already. So I'm glad to see Egypt and Cote d'Ivoire. I'm particularly impressed with Egypt because Egypt is doing 37%. And Egypt is not a major producer of cocoa. Egypt is not a major producer of cocoa, and Egypt is doing 37%. So I'm particularly impressed with Egyptians. South Africa is not doing badly, 12.5, and Ghana, of course, 8.44. I would like to see Nigeria on this list as one of the major producers of cocoa in West Africa. Following, I think, we are either number 3 or number 4 now in Africa, behind Cote d'Ivoire and behind Ghana. Behind Cote d'Ivoire and behind Ghana. Okay, Nigeria is actually behind Ghana. Cote d'Ivoire is the largest exporter of cocoa beans, followed by Ghanaians, followed by Nigerians, followed by Cameroonians. But please note, market size for cocoa beans in the world is about 10 billion, 9.2 billion as of 2018, about 10 billion in all. We can't sit down with commodities. We must begin to add value to it. The trend line is growing as usual. You should not be surprised with that now. My theory is correct. And lastly, before we close today, remember the competitor Egyptian, Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, and Ghanaian and Senegal are major exporters. Nigeria is one of the major exporters of cocoa beans. But Nigeria, look at this. Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana are both major exporters of cocoa beans, and they are on the list of chocolate export. Ghana is number 2. Cote d'Ivoire is number 1. Nigeria is number 3. Nigeria is nowhere to be found here. Nigeria is nowhere to be found here. Why? Because we are not taking production and export of that product seriously. You know, I was so, in the bid to ask question, I was asking a question some times ago, why are we not doing a lot of chocolate export? Because at least there's a market of over $500 million in Africa. So there's a market. And I realized that I was asking, okay, what does it mean? What does it take from cocoa to chocolate bar, from beans to bar? How much? And I realized with 200,000 euro, we can set up 200,000 euro, you can set up a chocolate factory, 200,000 euro. So I asked myself, so why are we not doing it? Because 200,000 euro is less than 100 million. Let me shock you. People that do cocoa export in Nigeria, they are doing, some of them are doing over $1 billion in a year. 2 billion naira, 5 billion, 10 billion. Cocoa export, cocoa beans export in Nigeria. Cocoa beans export in Nigeria. So if we can do that much, why are we not adding value? Why are we not adding value? I know people will say all sorts of things around the reason why, but I've said it severally. If foreigners are coming to Nigeria and they are adding value and cleaning out, that excuse we are giving is not holding water. I'm not holding sway for the government. Government is not doing enough, no doubt. But I'm also saying, sincerely, we can do our part in adding a little value. In adding a little value.